Okay, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Overcome and Become podcast. With me, as always, is my co-host Humberto Kaufman, and today we have a very special guest, two-time Olympian, Jack Factory and dark sport athlete, and by far the most impressive IFBB pro out of India. We have Bhuwan Chauhan. How are you today, sir?
Good. Thanks, Byron. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for joining us today. I can't tell you enough how excited we actually are to just have somebody like yourself on the podcast, especially at such a young age. You're 25, I believe now.
Oh, sorry, what?
I said, especially at a young age. You're 25, I believe now,
Oh, I'm
correct?
27 actually. Yeah.
Jesus, 27. Okay, the time's gotten away from me.
Yeah, getting older. Getting older.
Absolutely, man. So tell me, someone like yourself at a young age, moving from another part of the world like India to Canada to pursue schooling in engineering, correct?
Yeah.
What was the biggest difference for you to go through something like that and then become a full-time bodybuilder? Like what was the catalyst that made you take the plunge?
I think the biggest thing was when I came here, I was always involved in sports back home, and especially in high school and pretty much all my schooling years. So when I came here for university, with my engineering course load, the way my classes were organized, I didn't really have any time to play any kind of sports. And that kind of like, okay, what do I do? If I can't play sports, then I still need some physical activity. And that's when I started getting towards the gym. I'm like, okay, well, my classes, my labs are done at 9 p.m. The only thing I can really do after 9 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays is go to the gym. And I didn't have any knowledge or anything like that. I started working out 2 months before I came to Canada, back in India, where my uncle was kind of like teaching me a few things, but I still had no knowledge about diet, no knowledge about exercises. So I kind of just self-taught myself while I was studying in my first year, first semester, and just kind of just went with it, researched online, made some programs, just kind of just went along with the flow and just had nobody made it dumb mistakes, injured myself a few times, my brachialis, my shoulder used to always hurt because I'm trying to like not um like not having my elbows tucked in while doing shoulder presses, or like trying to go too heavy on like bicep exercises. So it was just a very trial and error kind of approach to it. And then as soon as my first year was done, I felt like I had a good base of how the nutrition works, how the exercise works, and I kind of just fell in love with the process. And after that, it was just about balancing it with school and balancing it with part-time jobs and all of that. But being in school, being an international student who was on scholarships, bodybuilding was kind of becoming more of an expensive sport. So I couldn't really do much outside of just looking good for myself and just doing everything online. Coaches weren't as common back then. I couldn't even afford one. Supplements, not really. So it took me a while to be comfortable, which was after I actually graduated, is when I also thought about competing, because at that time, Men's Physique was coming out in 2014. I graduated in 2015. So I had a year of just observing what Men's Physique is. Some of the guys I was always into, Jeff Size, Steve Cook, and all these guys were competing for the first time, not just being fitness models. So I was like, I always wanted to be a fitness model. That's why I started lifting in the gym. I was always lean. I never really went for the more bulky, like muscle look. I just wanted to stay lean year round. And when I saw them doing that, I'm like, okay, maybe I can do this too. And I went to a bodybuilding show back in 2000, I think 14, a year before I graduated. And I saw bodybuilding. And I'm like, okay, this is actually pretty impressive. I had no idea what bodybuilders are. I had never looked up to any bodybuilding competitions. I had no interest in any of the muscle look. I was always about the fitness model look. So when I graduated, I had the money. I was working as an engineer. I needed something like an outlet, which is more than just a 9 to 5 job. So this became my outlet, and it gave me like a very good aim to focus for that. Hey, after my work, this is my focus. Like I need to get ready for a show. So I planned a year in advance. I kind of like started gaining more muscle, and then and went on to do a show. I hired a coach to help me prepare for the show, and I did the show and I won. And that to me was like, this is good, but that's it. I didn't want to compete anymore. For me, it was like, I just want to see where I am. I won, great. Now I can go party and I can just go look good, just maintaining this. But the judges at the show actually told me to do another show, which was in 2 weeks, which was the Alberta Provincials. Back in the time, there was local, then provincial, and then nationals, and there was only two pro cards, one pro card actually at the national back then. So they kind of told me to do the show in 2 weeks, and I had a vacation planned for Vegas in the middle. So the 1 week after my first show and 1 week before my second show, I had a vacation planned. So I'm like, well, I didn't really plan for any of the shows. I just wanted to look good for my vacation. That's it. So they're like, no, you should really do it. That's a big show. I think you have the right shape and genetics for this. I'm like, damn, okay. Well, then I went on to do my vacation while I was on prep. So I was in Vegas carrying Ziplocs of fish and spinach because I was pretty much in peak week at the end of that week. And I had spinach and fish in my pockets. Wherever I'm going, I'm actually just eating out of Ziplocs, organize all my meals, stuff like that. It was actually EDC, which was the Electric Daisy Carnival at Vegas. That was a festival. So while at the festival, I was eating my all these meals and taking Ziplocs of food inside the festival in my crotch, telling my girlfriend at the time to put her in somewhere in her purse to, so smuggle it in so I can eat. Because the biggest issue was I need to eat every 2.5 hours, no matter where I'm.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how that happened. And then I went on to do the provincials, which was I won that again, and I won overalls in it, and that was against a lot of guys who've been competing at national level. So that was the first time, and I realized I think maybe this is it. Like this is what I want to do. That this is my destiny. That I want to do this because I'm good at it. So then I made the goal of becoming a pro. I had no idea what a pro card was before that. I didn't really care about pro or anything like that. I just wanted to compete just like that. So when I wanted to turn a pro is when I started thinking about how I'm going to go for it. I took a whole year and then I went and did the nationals. I came second at nationals. And then I did another show, which was the only other show in Canada to get a pro card 8 weeks after, I think 10 weeks after, and I turned pro there. So basically in 16 months, I went from like never wanting, not knowing what pro card is to actually turning pro because I just wanted to do it and I was good at it. And after that, I was like, okay, now that I'm a pro, I am not going to stop it here. I want to go to the Olympia. And I told myself that I'm going to allow myself 2 years. So not 1 year, because I was realistic that, okay, I need more time and I want to see how I'm, as long as I can place top 5 at my pro debut, I think I have it in me to go to the Olympia. So I did my first show the next year at Van Pro and I came 5th at my pro debut. And I was like, okay, I'm happy. I was super happy because I'm like, this is what my goal was. I never said I want to come top 3, never said I want to be first. For me, I was like, I want to be top 5. That shows me that I can go to the Olympia because the top first 4 guys were already Olympians. So I was like, okay, let's do this. And then I gave myself another year. And yeah, and then I had to do 5 shows, but I got to the Olympia, and that's how the journey began. And now it's just there's no stopping.
It's very interesting how, kind of like going back to this amazing story, how that one comment from that one judge or person could potentially change the course of the rest of your life. Because at that point, you basically had in mind, I just want to do this one show, then that's it. But then that little catalyst, that little comment, that little motivation, and look at yourself now, right? Like, do you think you would have gotten back to competing without that person kind of like pushing you to the next show?
I probably would have waited to do the show next year because in my mind, I was never the biggest guy on stage. And in my mind, I was like, okay, I did the local show. I was actually one of the smallest guys, even at the local stage. And I won, which is great. Okay, I'm conditioned, I worked hard. In my mind, I was like, I've put in everything I had in this prep, and I know I worked hard. So that's why I got rewarded. But to win the next level, which is provincial, I need to be bigger. So in my mind, I was like, I need to put on some size to go on to do that. 2 weeks is not enough. So that's why I had no interest. But then when he said that, no, you should still do it, you have a good chance, I'm like, well, it's not really going to hurt me. Yeah, it hurts my vacation, it hurts my plans, but it's a challenge. And I always love challenges that, okay, it's a challenge to do all this in Vegas. I'm like, okay, let's see how it goes. I'm going to try my best. And yeah, everybody was shocked at the time because they all saw me dancing and they all saw me like having a vacation, but they didn't really see that I was actually eating all these meals and never really skipped any of that, which was hard, super duper hard, but it was rewarded again. So it kind of becomes more like an obsession that when you work hard, when you give your all and you know that you're not leaving any stone unturned, you're going to get rewarded at the end.
Absolutely. And the proof is in the pudding. I mean, obviously,
That's it.
that 16 months, it speaks
That's it.
volumes.
That's it.
I have a question, and for me, it's what was the biggest difference? Was it the pro card that pushed you to quit your full-time job altogether and pursue this full-time, or was it taking
So
on clients?
I always wanted to be a fitness model. As I said, like when I think it was 2 years into training and lifting, when I figured out some of the models that I was watching at the time, I was like, huh, this life is really good what they're doing. Like this is fun and they're not working or anything like that. I'm like, huh, I want to be, maybe one day I'll be a sponsored athlete. That's what my goal was. Maybe one day I won't have to buy my own supplements and stuff like that. So when I first won my show, my first two shows, I got an offer from a company that was more of a ambassador program, not really a sponsored program, wherein they give you free supplements in return of some posts and stuff. So I was like, okay, this is great. At least for the first time in my life, I don't have to spend money on supplements and stuff because that was a big expense as a student. So I was it was fulfilling. And I'm like, okay, what is the next step? How are these guys doing it? So I started researching more about all these other athletes who are doing it full time, like Sadiq Hadzovic. And there was like some of these more popular ones. I'm like, huh, I actually really want to be a fully sponsored athlete and live that life that these guys are living. And that will also allow me, when I turn pro, I was like, this is the only way that I can actually maybe aim to be at the top one day. Because if I were to juggle my engineering job with doing multiple shows a year as a pro, I don't think it's going to happen because it's so demanding. It's not just like a regular job that it's done in 8 hours because it's constantly using your mind. It's even after work, you have to do it. So it's a very demanding job. And with that, when you're in peak week, when you're doing like all these shows, maybe one show a year, I was competing pretty much all throughout my engineer life as an engineer and competing all these shows. But it was hard because peak weeks, you got to take the whole week off. So your vacation, you get 3 weeks of vacation, or 2 weeks went on doing 2 week peak weeks. So you don't really get time for yourself at all because that's how hard it is. I'm like, okay, I really need to see what I can do. And if my goal is to get to the Olympia, I'm going to be all in. There's no doubts in my mind that I can't get there. I knew for 100% fact that I will get there. So I have to make the choices that lead up there. So the first choice was that I'm a new pro, nobody knows me. I need to put my name, I need to make my name from scratch. Amateur is different. You can turn pro and still be nobody at the pro level because that's how competitive that is. So in order to become someone at that level, I need to be all in. And I was like, okay, this is it. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to do this full time. I'm going to put all my focus and energy into just resting, sleeping, eating, training, and thinking 24/7 about my one goal. I don't want to think about work. I don't want to think about meetings. I don't want to think about friends. I only want to think about one thing every single day, 24 hours a day. And through that, through the manifestation that I had on a daily basis, I believe that's what really helped me to get there in the timeline that I told myself that I want to get there.
That's very interesting. Now, my question would be this type of mindset that you have currently, and that is very necessary in order for someone to be at the top of their game, and the mindset being going all out and believing in yourself. Is this something do you think that you're born with, or is this something that in your case, for example, you developed over your life experiences that kind of started to build up into the level of confidence that you currently have?
I think it started at a very early age. I think since I was pretty small, I've always been super competitive. And I remember like all these stories my parents tell me when like I was 3 or 4 years old and I was in kindergarten and all these like small school groups where they have races and all that. And I was like, I used to never give up. Like I would fall back and I would like keep going. Like it doesn't matter how much it hurts me. So I kind of feel like it was always there that I was all in. Like it doesn't matter what happens, I'm gonna finish it and I want to be the best at it. And that kind of got amplified as I grew up, and with my mom always pushing me to be the best to whatever I do. So it's like, okay, if you, for example, if you score 95%, I'm going to reward you with this. So I kind of grew up in a reward based upbringing, which was perfect for a person like me who is very competitive, because I always have, okay, if I do this, I get this. If I do this, I get that. So that was in the childhood and like early years. In teenagers, it became more of, okay, if I achieve all of these things, then I'm put myself in a better position. For example, it could be something as being the president of the student council at school, or um, being top ranked in the country and things like that. So it kind of really continued to push me that I always, no matter what I do, I want to do it to the best of my ability and to become the best in that one thing that I want. So I kind of tried different things all throughout my school life, that what I'm good at. I played every single sport, I played every single activity that there is, just to understand that what I'm actually good at. If I'm not good at something, I would stop. But what I'm good at, I will actually continue to do it more to get better at it. So that's how I feel with even the bodybuilding. I took it kind of slow, that I knew that I'm good in the sense that, okay, I know how to train and I had a lean build, but I never really thought that this is going to be something that I'm going to be competing with people. But because I had that competitiveness in me and I saw that I won, it really pushed me to keep working harder in this field. And all of this kind of just aligned that this is what I want to do, because it keeps me on that competitive edge.
So one thing that really shows your determination by far, by a mile, it stands out. Obviously, especially with some of the sponsors that you have, like Dark Sport, for example. To my understanding, they seek certain people out. It's not really the other way around, where you can just approach them.
Yeah.
So one thing that I'm very curious about is, what was your biggest sacrifice during any of your preps so far? Like, were there personal friendships or relationships that were affected by like the Olympia prep, or maybe something that was affected with, like, missing birthdays, for example? I only ask because I know, and I could speak for anyone who's a competitor, like, you're going to miss out on some important things because, well, you can't really eat or drink or enjoy certain things.
Yeah. So I like to believe that I'm the most disciplined person I know, and that definitely comes with a lot of sacrifices in terms of socializations and friends and relationships and things like that. And I've always kind of sacrificed that aspect of my life even before I started competing, because being an international student, I was under a lot of pressure to continue on, to hold on to my scholarships, to maintain a 3.6, 3.7 GPA, to be only able to maintain the financial help that I was getting from the university, and also to secure a job after graduation as an international student is very important, because where are you going to stay? Who's going to pay for the expenses and all those things? So um, because I went through that at a young age. I came here when I was 17. So all those first 4 years of engineering, kind of like, okay, I can't socialize. I can't really do all these activities that a lot of other students are doing, because I need to build my life. And that's my priority. That's what I want. Everything else comes second. So that, I feel, is what built that work ethic and discipline to go on to the whole competing side of things. And when I was working and I was competing, I don't think I even met any of my friends for an entire year, because I was so busy. Monday to Friday, 8 hours, you're doing that. Saturdays, grocery shopping, meal prep. Sunday is one day that I'm actually resting. I'm probably sleeping 14 hours, because I don't get to sleep at all during the weekdays, because you're going to the gym 3, 4 hours a day, working 9 hours a day, doing all those things were taking so much of my time that there was nothing else that I could really do. So no activities, nothing like that. And because I competed pretty much 2, 3 shows every year, it just wasn't happening. So now that I'm a full-time athlete and I have more time in my hand, I'm also under more pressure, because what a lot of people don't really realize, and what I didn't know, is that, yeah, the athlete life is great. You make your own schedule, you're getting paid for sponsoring supplements, and you're just living the life, posting some photos on Instagram. It is, but the thing with this life is that it's super competitive. So if I take a chill day out, if I, let's say, miss a meal, in my mind, I'm always thinking, what are these other guys? I mean, if I was 15th at the Olympia, what do I have to do to be the first? And those 14 guys, what are they doing different? Are they ahead of me? Or are they behind me? Maybe I am outworking them, but they have better genetics than me, so they have better talent. But over time, if I can do that one day, I can get ahead. Every month, that adds up to 12 days every year, that adds up to 60 days for 5 years. Now I'm ahead of them in terms of how disciplined I was in that time frame, and maybe that's the reason why I will beat them. I may not beat them through the talent, but I may beat them through the days that they fall off and I don't. So that mentality keeps you in a lot of pressure that, hey, I can't really chill. There's, I have lots of time to do that. Once you retire, do whatever you want. Nobody really even cares about you. So this is the time to be at your 100% game. So at least to put myself in a position that, oh, hey, that if I didn't become Mr. Olympia, if I didn't get to the top three, top five level, maybe it was my talent, not my work ethic, because talent I don't have much control over. That's just genetics that's been given to me. But work ethic, I have 100% control over. And I don't want to be in a position that, hey, I miss at 10 days, I missed my diet, or I didn't give 100% my training, or because I was hanging out with my friends and having a fun time drinking beer, is why I didn't get to the top. That's one feeling I can't live with. I just want
That,
to be sure that whether I am top five, top three, top 10, or whatever level I am at before I retire, I gave it my everything. And there was nothing more that I could have done.
that's very interesting because I think even though genetics, of course, play a certain role in the sport, I feel like there's a tendency lately to attribute a little bit too much when it comes to the genetics, and some people when it comes to making a decision of whether they want to pursue something or push harder. It's almost like they encounter this safety net in which they convince themselves that because they don't have the best genetics, they cannot achieve the things that other people in the sport have. Whereas, as you're mentioning, there's potentially always someone that has perhaps slightly better genetics than you, but that person without the discipline and the consistent hard work is only going to be able to get so far. And once they cap that, the person that has been consistent with the work, even though they might not have 100% genetics as the other person may have, they may be able to slowly surpass them when it comes to the finish line.
Oh, 100%. I coach a lot of guys now, and I see that very common that most guys who are actually genetically gifted don't work as hard as the guys who are not. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually the guys who are least genetically gifted who work the hardest.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of always found it amusing, and I always like try to push these guys. You have the world is in your hand. You have all these genetics that you're made for, but you don't work as hard. If you did, you're unstoppable. And it's funny how that works because it's the guys who are actually genetically gifted and who work 100% hard who actually end up becoming the pioneer of any sport that they're in, because just the talent itself is not going to do it. So yeah, it's definitely, I think it's very common in every sport, not just in bodybuilding, that a lot of people just take it for granted, and they may have the talent for that sport, but they don't have the mindset for that.
I can see that being potentially very frustrating for you as a coach, seeing these people with amazing genetics and not really fulfilling their potential, almost like throwing it out because they're like just not fully invested. And because you've been in the sport and you have a certain degree of knowledge, how far these people could potentially get to. You almost want to just force them, but you can't. Like you just have to allow, because they are the ones that have to really want it. You can't want it for them. So in my experience as well, coaching some people, I've experienced this, and it's incredibly frustrating because you're just like, man, like you can reach for the stars, but you're just playing. You're just playing around, right?
Exactly. It's yeah, it's funny how that works. It's frustrating, but I feel it's, you can see the guys who are gifted and who are having that work ethic who won't take much time to get to the top, because they have both those abilities. And I feel like in any field, whether even if you're in a corporate field, you'll see the guys who have both that go up to the top to become VPs and CEOs versus the guys who may only have one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what's one lesson then, since we're talking about coaching specifically, what's one lesson that you always try to provide to, let's say, competitors that are knocking on the door at the national level for a pro card? What's something, whether they're genetically gifted or not, that you try to pass down?
I always preach that you want to want what you want to want what you want hard. Like there's nothing more that should be important in your life than that goal. So when people compete for pro cards, a lot of people say, "Oh, I want to be a pro," and they they want it. But looking back, I always ask them, I'm like, "Did you really give it your all? Like, can you be honest with yourself for a second and actually answer that question, that was there anything, it could be rest, it could be sleep, it could be your meals, it could be your training, it could be your cardio, in the entire 12, 14, 16-week prep, or let's even say a year, because to be really honest, goals like that don't really happen in 12, 14 weeks. It happens over years. So in those years, did you really give your 110% where you were 100% every single day? Or did you slip? Sometimes life happens. I can understand you get sick, your family issues happen, all that. Okay. But did you make a choice, a conscious choice to slip or not? If the answer to that question is, yeah, maybe I fucked up 2 days or 3 days, well, guess what? There's another guy who probably didn't. And that's why you're not a pro.
Would you would you agree with the statement that your definition of hard work has evolved through the years and as you step to different levels?
I think the hard work stays the same, but the which where I'm putting the work has changed. Where the hard work is to be put in has changed because priorities have changed. And hard work is more like, if a task is given to you, you're going to just do it no matter what at the best, optimum, consistent level. And yeah, so a lot of people don't really get that, what really hard work is. Like they can do it for a couple days, couple months, but then they kind of slip off. But consistent hard work is what it takes to be at the top of anything. And I'm not saying I'm at the top of this game or not, but if you see that amongst any of the guys who have become Mr. Olympia, like all the bodybuilders, all the sportsmen, any sport you can talk about, basketball, Michael Jordan, Kobe, you'll see that there's something in common, that they always work more than the guys at the same level, despite them having more talent. So they're working hard even at that level because they know that to maintain that, to ensure that they're at that position, they have to outwork the others.
Very, very good way to put it, actually. And I think that would apply to any sport or even the corporate world, really.
But same in any field, yeah.
Anything you want to be successful in.
Mm-hmm.
So shifting gears a little bit, Bhuwan, because I'm a bit of a fan and I want to know, how did the dark sport deal come about?
So dark sport I joined last year in December, and with the dark sport I remember 2019 I went to the Olympia. Actually, before the Olympia, when I was competing at the shows, I had to do 5 shows to qualify for the Olympia 2019. So I was competing at all these shows, and I started making contacts with other athletes who were at the top, who were with dark sport, and I came across the brand, and I was like really I really loved the concept that they had about family and Ohana and like how they were doing these photo shoots with all these guys and the kind of the message that they preached about never fucking give up. And it's just all of that kind of resonated with me. But I did not contact them because I knew that 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 wolf pack that they have, I don't belong there yet. I have to prove myself to be at that caliber. So I'm not going to waste their time and I'm not going to waste my time. The last thing I want is to be disappointed. I don't like being disappointed. I'd rather work to get to that level and then see and belong there versus just me trying to reach out to them like, here I am, I'm a pro, I'm trying to go to the Olympia and this and that. Can you sponsor me? Or like, I really love your brand. No, I just don't do that. So I'm like, okay, not now, maybe next year, maybe in a while. So I saw Carlos from Brazil that became a member of that pack that year, who actually I did a show with, and I was at the Olympia with, and I went to their booth at the Olympia, and I kind of saw what they were doing, and I spoke to the owner just like a regular. I never said anything that I'm interested in the brand or anything. I just appreciate the brand, love competing, love your message that you send across and all that, and that's it. Left it at there and then went on to do my work. And I'm like, okay, now I have to prove myself again. So it was only after I did my show last year, Border States, that I won, after that I contacted them. It's like, okay, because I believe that now I've beaten a lot of their athletes. I have been to the Olympia twice because I qualified twice in a row. And now I can reach out to them and try to tell them that, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm good at. I resonate with your brand and I would love to be a part of it. And they kind of just they had an interview process and all those other things that they have, and then they just took me on, and here I am.
That's awesome, man. What was I know they do like the black and white photo shoot for the initiation and all that stuff, like the circle of posing. What
Yeah.
was that like for you?
It was really good. It was definitely a great experience. I saw that shoot happening actually when they did it for Carlos the year before, and I've seen other photo shoots that they've done. I also want to be like part of that. It was really fun. It was the day after the Olympia, and very exciting, and just seeing all these other guys just hyping you up and just welcoming you in the team. It was definitely a really good memory, and I can't wait to continue doing more shoots. I was actually supposed to do another shoot this year. March or April, I think April. And because of the restrictions in Alberta, I couldn't really fly. And now they have a shoot in the coming months that I'm excited to, go for.
That's amazing, man. Well, congrats on all that success. We always, I guess, have this little question for all of our guests, and it's if you could train with anybody, past or present, who would it be and why?
Past or present, like from the industry, or?
Yeah, just anyone, whether it's a coach or an athlete from, the early Olympias in the 80s and the 90s or whenever.
I
Who would
would
it be and
want
why?
to train. One of my biggest inspirations has always been Dorian Yates, and the only person I would want to train with is actually Dorian Yates. And lucky enough for me, one of my goals was that he's also part of dart sport. So maybe one day I get to meet him, and one of these shoots that you're gonna have, I'm sure I'm gonna have come across him and try to get a workout in with him.
That's awesome, man. I really hope that happens for you too. And I think Kevin LeBron is also part of dart sport now as well, correct?
Yeah, yeah, he just got initiated as well. Yeah.
A lot of legends in one room. Well, Bhuwan, I want to say thank you so much for the time, man. Best of luck this year if you are competing in any upcoming shows. And thank you again for just coming on and sitting down and chatting with us. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me here. Really enjoy the talk.
Absolutely. Did you want to shout out any of your sponsors at all? Obviously, this will be on YouTube and Spotify by the end of the week.
Yeah, I'm sponsored by Jack Factory and the Dart Sport and Father Son. So if you guys want to check it out, my code is Bhuwan, BHUWAN. And
we love Father Sons, so yeah, we'll be definitely
we
putting
spent
that
too much
code in.
yeah, so I'm associated with some of the good brands, and I kind of pride myself with who I associate myself with. I took my time to choosing these brands, and now I'm just I'm glad that I can stay with them. So I hope you guys enjoy these brands.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, sir. You have yourself a fantastic weekend, and we hope you enjoy the sun.